Hi, I'm Bear.
And I'm Sticks. On our podcast, we talk about everything airsoft.
Today we are looking at how to service AEGs. I'm going to take you through a process. I'm doing my personal firearm or airsoft gun. And yeah, Sticks, you've got lined up questions for this process.
That I do.
All right, well, let's jump straight into it. So, first thing you need to do is make sure you've got enough space and room to do it in. Um, this is my what's that? This is my G&G Honey Badger, or as I call it, AB, Angry Badger. So first thing we need to do is obviously disassemble a few parts. Let's jump to give you a bit of better view. So I'll take out.
While you're busy with
Yeah,
that, just want to ask, would you say that maintaining your rifle improves reliability and the consistency of performance when playing?
absolutely. We have AEGs, and AEGs work with batteries and gears. HPAs don't have gears, or GBBRs don't have gears. So if you don't maintain those gears by adding the grease to it, the likelihood of those gears, breaking is high. So if you don't maintain it, clean it, and put grease on there, your gears can go, and your performance will definitely go. Um, I have around me, and I don't want to disassemble all the cameras now, but around me I have all my boxes and tools. So I've got basically a table here of a meter by 2.5 meters. I'm working in a space of a meter with my tools around me. Now, depending on your gun, we have to start by removing the stock. You can also start by removing the upper receiver. I'm going to start with removing my stock because it's easier. As you see, I just had to pull my stock out. If you got a standard M4, you might have to take off the stock from the buffer tube and then to get into where the screw is. Now, let me just try to get a different angle here. You can see there's a screw inside there
Very back.
in the far back. Now that screw connects the buffer tube, or in my case, let's just call this the buffer tube, to the main frame, but also it connects to your gearbox, the casing of the gearbox. So that's what holds everything together. In actual fact, it's not just the casing of the gearbox. It actually goes through the casing of the gearbox into the spring guide, and it holds that spring guide into place, which also helps with better consistency with the spring. All
And
right.
if I'm not mistaken, most times it's a star screw in there.
Most times, yes, it's a star screw, and I am quite upset because one of my screwdrivers is now missing.
No.
Someone has been digging into my toolbox, and the chances is that it was me, and I just actually misplaced it. That's probably the more likelihood that that's the case. Okay, now if I can just get it in there. Okay, there we go. So it's going to take a while to screw. This is a fairly long screw. It's going to take a while to do it, get it out.
And now that you got a bit of time to talk, how often do you think you should be checking your rifle's gearbox out?
Um, Not too often, to be honest with you. If you do it once a year, you should be fine. Depending on how much you play. If you're playing every weekend, you might do it twice a year. And also depends on how much shooting you're going in there. I mean, if you're playing milsims, you don't shoot too often. If you're playing speedsoft, then that's a lot of shooting that's going to be happening there.
And then a very out the blue question. Do you think using it, say for example, the 7.1 volt, do you think that will increase the longevity of the parts per se than compared to an 11.1? if you were to have?
It depends. So if you have a MOSFET, as you can see, well, I'll show you. I don't have a proper MOSFET, but before I get there, there is connectors here. So you got to be very careful when you disassemble to have a look at these connectors. Some guns might not even have these, and they've got a solid wire going from the gearbox to the back connectors. I've got a Tamiya. Most people have Dean's. I recommend a Dean's connector. But you have to be very careful not to break any of your wires. So you can see mine here can just disconnect, and then I can get, actually I'm not even going to take these wires out. Essentially what you're going to do, what you can do is, if you don't have these connectors, your wiring is going to have to come out of the buffer tube. I don't know how. I've seen a few guns, I've worked on a few guns where that's one wire. I hate it. It's frustrating because to get these bloody wires in there and to keep your screw from not falling out, it's a mission. So if you can keep it
And
like this, you know, you're gonna be smiling when you go to reassemble. So for me,
if I'm not mistaken, certain rifles have that little like piece that sits in between there.
correct.
And that is a mission to put back in straight. I have fought for like 30 minutes trying to get that to go down straight just so my screw can go in perfectly.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna try to see if I can get a better angle in here. See if you can see that there's actually just a fuse. It's not a MOSFET, it's just a fuse. But if you have a MOSFET, so answering your question regarding the
Yes.
7.1 and the 11.1 volt LiPos. So if you don't have a MOSFET in your gun and you don't have electronic trigger, or especially if you have electronic trigger, you have to have a MOSFET. Because if you're running an 11.1 battery, the chances is that you can burn out your trigger housing. So you want that 11.1 volt for better performance, better rate of fire. But if you don't have the MOSFET, it could burn out that trigger. Now, if you have electronic trigger, you have to have the MOSFET. You don't want to burn out that electronic trigger. It's a pricey tag. So yes, if you don't have a MOSFET, 7.4 will be better. But I've run my old gun without a MOSFET and 11.1, and nothing happened. Luckily, nothing happened.
Okay, so at least, thank you. At least that's been answered now.
Okay. Next thing you want to do is you're going to remove your upper receiver from your lower receiver. You don't have to take off your attachments because this whole receiver is going to slide off. But there is a pin that holds this together. Now when it comes to AKs, it's a bit different. That is a whole video one can do on their own, and I'll gladly do it. But we are working on the M4s, i.e. V2 gearboxes. Right. Pin comes out, better angle. There's a pin that slides out. Mine stops, it's got a little stopper. Most guns, the whole pin just comes out. When you do remove it, make sure that you have a look at your fake, bolt catch. Just push that up, otherwise it will get caught and you're like, why is this not coming off? And as you can see, very quick and easy. Inside here is your hop-up that is connected to your inner barrel. This just easily slides out. Inside this hop-up is, inside the hop-up and the barrel is your bucking. But we'll look at that another time. Right now we're just going to look at the gearbox. Okay, so we put this aside. As you can see, got a very beautiful solid gearbox here from G&G itself. So all my parts essentially what is original, except for a few of the upgrade parts. Okay. From this point here, what you want to do is remove the handguard, the grip. And the way you do that is by unscrewing the two screws here that connects the motor. Now it depends on what you have. you might have, what do you call these, Allen key screws, or you have flat, but most people probably have a star. I'm I hate all screws. I don't think there's one screw that is a proper freaking screw because they all bloody well strip and the strip my mood. I tell you, it's
And
like
then I understand.
yes, I don't know. These things are so flippin' easy to strip. And I can't tell you why. Next thing you want to do is I'm going to try rotate this. I've got these boxes. So when I take my parts out, I put them each in their own little compartment so that I know where those screws, where those parts are. And I never lose them. Because if you do, and if you think a standing desk is a good way to do this, you're absolutely wrong. Because when it falls on the floor, good luck finding these bloody parts. I lost so many screws and springs when it falls on the freaking floor. It's like
You know what's the worst feeling than that? Is when you've finished fixing the problem, you put it all back together, and there's one part just sitting there.
that you forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is the worst feeling.
that is the worst feeling. Okay, so now we removed the little cap. So you can see there's a screw there. So what this screw does is it pushes the motor in or out. So sometimes when you play and you hear the it's like it spins and it's scratching the gear. It means this motor, and there's a delay again. This motor isn't in far enough. So you then screw that a little tighter to get this in. And sometimes also there's like a lock. So when the motor goes, it locks up. It could be that the motor's in too deep. Okay. So from this point, be very careful. You want to
Just
disconnect.
on the whole motor thing. You are answering all my questions before I can even answer them. You've just thought that much ahead of me. It's like I'm like looking there now, I'm like, that was a question I was gonna ask. Okay, well at least he's on the ball, like we're thinking alike.
Oh, well, it's a simple process. I mean, you're taking apart anything mechanical is a step by step, methodical thinking process, right? When you disassemble mechanical stuff, you got to remember how and where you took it out so that you know how and when to put it back in. And if you do it step by step and you use compartments, or, I mean, when I first started, I had a piece of paper and I would draw. So as I took the part out, I'd draw on the paper and then I'll draw the little place where that part is going to be and line it up, and I'll put those parts there. And then you start remembering out of your own. So getting back to this, you want to make sure you're very careful not to break these little wires off or the pins on the motor itself. I'll show you the pins now. Okay, so these little pins can break very easily if you're not careful. Okay, so you got your negative and your positive pin. Red is obviously positive, black or clear being negative. I've got a very decent motor here. I mean, this is a 25k motor from G&G. I love G&G. I love G&G.
Joe, I know you've got a very decent motor. My back is still sore from the last time you
Dude,
shot me.
that's just rate of fire. That's just rate of fire. I'll show you the reason why your back is sore now. Okay. Inside there is two screws, and you want to be very also careful to remove these ones. When you tighten these up, you make sure that you don't tighten them too tight, because when you try to untie them, that's when it strips, and that's when your moose strips. Because try and
You
get
just
this.
want to do it like one or two after you feel it's somewhat tight. You don't want to make it as tight as possible.
I'll show you how later on how I do it. So when I feel like it just grips, that's when I stop, and I don't go further. Um, because
Sure, a lot of people would think the tighter it is, the better it's going to work.
you think because it's a working piece, you know, it needs to be tight. You don't want it to be loose. And to a good extent, yes, that's true. But you don't have to over tighten it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what I like to do is I try to not unscrew and take the screws out, because if you do take these screws out, good luck fighting them back in, because it can be frustrating to get them back in. So I've
Fighting
got
them
my
with that.
screws still in there, and I'm going to place it like this on a safe space where it can't fall over. Okay.
Smart man.
Yeah,
Smart man.
when you've taken a gun apart a few times, you start learning tricks. Okay, so the motor's off, the grip is off. We can now move to the next part, which is your selector, your mag release, there's a trigger pin, and then obviously this back pin for the motor itself. The way I do it is the way this goes in, my trigger pin is going to go in the same way, so that I know when I have to punch it out, it will be the same out and in on either end. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my trigger pin. See, simple, easy out. And I'm putting that one side in its own little compartment. And I'm to express my frustration. So this one comes out. So it's not like this one that just has a catch there. This one actually comes out. To express my frustration with stripping screws, I don't know if you can see that one, but that has stripped, and I had to somehow,
Open it. Oh,
by the
and
grace of
loose.
by the grace of God, I was able to get this thing out somehow. So the reason I'm actually taking this gun apart is because I want to change this ambidextrous selector to one side only. It frustrates the living crap out of me, these ambidextrous. They don't go at the same time. No, it's frustrating. Okay, last thing we've got to take out here. Well, no, sorry, we still got to do the mag release, but let's work on the selector here. Lefty loosey, righty tighty, right? So if I'm going to turn this thing leftwise, I'm going to make sure that the selector is on safe, because I'm going to try to turn it, the selector is just going to turn with me, so it's going to block there. Now I've got to remember what in the goodness I've used here to be able to. What I did is I took these hex keys
Yes.
and I just pretty much moved it in, to make it, to get it in there.
It's one way.
It was one way. I kind of like drilled a bit, and then I smashed it in. Now where is that piece? There it is. That's the one. And you can see I didn't tighten this one at all. I mean, I can loosen it with my finger. That's because I'm scared of it stripping further, and I don't want that.
You don't want more problems. You want solutions.
Yeah. That's also why I want to change this to a single selector, because I stripped this one. Now, bit back. You see there's underneath the screw is like this little spring area. There's a ball that goes on that, and that ball, let me just put this on a safe point. That ball is what bounces in between these little holes. So you know when you hear click, 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 it's the ball that is actually doing it. Okay, so now there's another little hex here. This one's a very small one. So what I can suggest is you get like these multi-parts adapters, and you get yourself a nice screwdriver that you can put these in, because when you have this, it makes your life so much easier just to swap between the parts, between the bits. If I can find that bit now, it would be wonderful. Where is my bits? I want to blame people, but I know it's me. I want to say someone's been in here, but no one's been in this box except for myself. So the problem lies with me.
That happened to me so many times, especially when I'm like, I need to use the tool and I need to work on something. It's like, I swear I put it back here. Later on, I think back to it, I'm like, I don't think I put it back there.
Luckily, I was able to manipulate this hex key with the Allen key, which is not appropriate, it's not correct. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go running around looking for that part.
Also, then it's a solution for if you're on field and you don't have all the tools available, there's something that you could possibly do to try and help with it.
Yeah. So in this mag release, there is obviously the screw that goes into the mag release plate, and there's a spring that slides in there. And here is the mag release plate, and the screw obviously connects, screws into that. Okay. Mag release obviously because there's the part that the mag catches onto. Right, now remember we're putting each one in its own compartment, making sure we keep our parts together so we don't lose them, as I lost my bit, which is quite hilarious because I'm trying to show a video of how to do this the right way. Okay, now, like I said, lefty loosey, right? So I've got to swap that over. And yep, this is not going to work. So I need to make sure I find this bit now. Otherwise, it's just going to get nowhere. That's too big. And if Mr. Rafna is watching me now, don't judge me, bud. It's not nice to judge people because I'm sorry, I misplaced my bit.
This is a judge-free zone.
Yeah. So everyone can. I've seen Rafna set up, and he is quite organized, and there's parts everywhere, but he knows where his stuff is, which is actually what I always have, but for some reason, can't find my bit. Damn it, Ray.
That was pretty much me in school. So everyone would be like, "Yo, your desk is so messy," or if we're doing a project, "Oh, everything's everywhere." But as soon as someone was like, "Oh, I need this," I'd go through the organized chaos. I'd know exactly where it is. I'd give it to them.
Hey, there we go. I found something that can work. Helps having these multi boxes. Okay, so you can see that's the spring went straight through. The ball went straight through the spring, and it started scratching up the selector side there. Okay, I'll show you. You can see there's the spring and there's the ball. It's bolt springed. Okay, we put it back in its pot, and now this should be able to come out easy enough. Now I have to be actually careful taking out this motor because there you go, you'll see my where is it? Yeah, my selector mechanisms came out. Now the thing with this is, all I have to do to change this is to keep this mechanism in place. I will do it properly later, and leave this one out. This spock here, I'll just leave that out, and I'll be able to still function this with a single side. Although I would have liked to have kept this or closed this side up, but whatever. I tried to look for a part that I did have, but I can't seem to find it. Let's see if it's in this box. Nope. Not in this box. Whatever. I'll just leave it open. Okay, so now we're out. Like a full metal lower receiver, full metal upper receiver. It's the way to go, because what happens often with these receivers, if they're plastic, they often break here, around this side. And if that does break, then you got to get a new lower receiver, whatever. Okay.
When it comes to those breaks there, would you say it starts off as something small, or it's dependent on how you treat the rifle, obviously? And if you jump and you fall down, obviously
Yeah.
there's a lot more force going there, but would you say more so naturally it would be something small that then just gradually grows?
Yeah, I think it's how you play. If you're playing rough, it's probably going to break. Um, if you are looking after your gun, it shouldn't break necessarily, but you'll see that a crack will start lining. You'll often see that, and it's over this circle part here. You'll see a crack start lining. Then you know, okay, this has the potential to break.
Would you say there's anything that you could do as a quick fix, or would you just recommend then replacing the part?
No, I mean, I've seen some guys use epoxy. Um, it's just, I don't know. I don't think whatever you do, that thing's gonna break, because there's a lot of tension that goes into that part there.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a V2 gearbox. V3 gearbox is what you'll get on an AKs. Um, I can't remember the other. There's quite a lot of different variants of gearboxes, and like I think the first gearbox started was the one for, I think it was the P90s. I'm probably mistaken, but this is your most common gearbox. Um, there is some different variants of the V2. You get a split gearbox. In other words, I have to now disassemble this whole thing in two parts. A split gearbox has the top part that comes off with the upper receiver, and then you're left with the bottom part. That makes life so much easier disassembling a gun, these gearboxes, because the tension at this point is lying here in the top part where the spring is. So if you have that split gearbox, you don't have to work on this part at all. You can just work on there and take out the spring if you want to change it for a higher spring. Other guns like Aries and King's Arms, they have which mine doesn't, a quick change, spring change. So
Okay.
the spring guide that's behind this part here, which that buffer tube screws into, it pushes it, you push it in and you turn it out, and the spring comes out. So when you try to reassemble this part, and you're trying to push the spring in, and you're trying to keep the trigger together, and you try to keep all the parts together, it's a mission. But with the quick release or the split gearbox, it's a dream to work on. Okay, I really don't want to disassemble this, because I don't need to disassemble this. It's going to be a pain in my ass, because the only thing I wanted to do was change the selector. But anyways, for you guys, I'm doing this. I'm going to shout and scream and preferably not swear. Okay, so when you start off disassembling these gearboxes, in my case, I have to first disassemble the selector mechanism. Most gearboxes, V2 gearboxes, the selector actually sits on the receiver itself, so you don't have to do what I'm doing now. But neither here nor there really. I always start off on the inner screws, and when I do, I'm going to place this in this compartment. And when I do, I actually put my screws out the same way it came out.
Any specific reason as to why?
So essentially, all these screws, most of them are the same length. So you don't necessarily have to do it, but there is some gearboxes where I think it's this screw and this screw might be long, or this screw and this screw is longer than the other screws. So then you don't want to have one screw, because they have to be flush. When you're putting them back in your receiver, these screws have to be flush. Otherwise, you're just going to struggle and get frustrated. You're going to have to unscrew and screw again. So the reason why I put them out is to remember the way they have to go back in. Okay, so starting with the...
Can't also be because sometimes when I've taken my gearbox apart, if I start from the outer ones, you'll kind of see the pressure starting to build, like with the spring with the piston.
Yeah,
So I that's why I'll go center, because then you can still apply the pressure needed to keep that spring from shooting out.
correct. And most of the pressure is sitting on the outside of this gearbox. Oh, there's one more thing I want to show on this gearbox. So you see here, there's like a little groove cut out there at the top. If your gearbox has this, fantastic. And you can also see it's been reinforced here, right? Why this is done, because most gearboxes will crack on that corner. So if there's no hole drilled in there, and I'm not saying go take your gearbox and drill it. I'd rather take it to someone that works on guns, let them do it for you. But this helps avoid cracking. So I've had a gearbox where this whole part cracked off, broke off, because there wasn't a little slit there, a drilled hole there, and I had a stronger upgraded spring in it. So there was a lot of pressure working on here, and it cracked and came off. So this helps avoid those cracks and breaks. Righto, so we're getting onto these screws. So you can see I'm placing them neatly. And in my gun, if I'm not mistaken, I've got an M130 or M140 spring. So there's a lot of tension in this gearbox at the moment. I think it's an M130. I don't think it's an M140.
And I'm correct in saying if you were to upgrade your motor, you probably have to look at upgrading your spring as well.
Yeah, if you're upgrading your spring, you need to upgrade your motor, because it's the motor that is able to turn the gears and pull the spring back. Now, also keep in mind, if you are upgrading your spring and you have to upgrade your motor, you have to look at your gears, because there might be some gears that is not strong enough to take all that tension. If you're upgrading your gun, there's a rule of thumb. You start in the front of the gun, work your way back. So in other words, look at the inner barrel, get a precision barrel. Then you do your bucking. Then from your bucking, you look at your hop up. Now, G&G standard hop ups are actually pretty decent. Although they are plastic, they're actually fairly decent hop ups. And it's a rotary hop up. Let's just grab this. So it's a rotary hop up, meaning the adjustment wheel is at the back and it turns on the side there. Oh, on the back. Fantastic hop ups. You also get these side hop ups. Now it depends on each gun. My gun will not be able to take this, I don't think. I don't think there's enough space at the top there. But the gears will sit here on the side. Now I've disassembled this one. Nothing wrong with these hop ups, but it's just one of those things where the rotary hop up on the G&Gs are just perfectly made. And yeah, actually I know a few guys that actually try to just get those for their guns and leave that as the upgrade. Okay, I've got two screws here. This is for spacing purposes and also on the inside. Don't have to take those out to disassemble this. This is your selector plate. To take this off, you actually have to take it off on the outside. The only way I've ever done it was by bending it and taking out, which you have to be careful because it can break over there, and that you don't want, because then you have to buy a new selector plate, and I think it's about 250 Rand for a selector plate. So try to avoid that. If you've got a selector plate on already and it works, leave well enough alone, in my opinion. Okay, now we're getting to the point where we have to disassemble this. The way I do it is, let me see if I get a thin enough rod here. because there you go. There you go. The way you want to do it is I put my rod inside the spring guide, and it keeps it in one place. Here. I did get all the screws, right? Yeah. Which one is it going to be best to open? This one's a bit tight. For whatever reason you are tight. Be a naughty surprise if there's something wrong with this. I won't be happy. I'll tell you that much.
But that's not the case.
Alright, so as you heard, a lot of tension there. The whole thing just shot into pieces. Not broken, but the spring just basically moved everything out and apart. So good for you guys, because now I can show you how to reassemble every flipping part. Bad for me, I have to reassemble this. There was a lot of tension in there for whatever reason. Let's make sure everything's okay and not broken. Interesting. My spring is bent. I wonder why that is. Could be that I maybe must look at.
Maybe it's too long.
No, it's not. I mean, this would still work fine. You got your spring guide. So this is the spring guide. Okay, it goes in the spring, and you see there's like these two little pins on it. Those pins actually seat inside the gearbox so that it doesn't rotate, and also holds it into place. But yeah, so I mean, essentially this will still shoot perfectly, but you don't. It shows you that there is either this is too long, or there's just too much tension, or maybe it was seated back too much. But it shouldn't be an issue really. And I still have other springs. So worst case scenario, I swap back. You can see here's a shorter spring. No idea what the strengths are of these springs. I know this one was the M130. Whatever the others are, I have no freaking idea. But anyways.
Whatever spring you buy, mark it off and put it somewhere. Because I have the exact same issue. I've gotten to the point where I've just thrown the springs in there. It's like, okay, when we get there, I'll ask for a chrono and I'll see which spring is which.
Yeah, I think the black one came with the gun, so that's a standard M100, I think, or M110. The other one I got from someone, they just gave me parts. So yeah. Anyways, let's start here. So here you have your standard trigger housing. It moves with the trigger, pushes this part forward into those plates there. Hey guys, Bear here from Bear With Me and Sticks Around podcast. I have some very exciting news. Bruce from Airsoft League SA and Airsoft X have given us 2 tickets for any 2 of our lucky winners in a lucky draw competition to win tickets into Airsoft X valued at 550 Rand each. It's very simple on how to get it. The first ticket is anyone as a lucky draw that has subscribed to our YouTube, has become a follower on our Facebook page on SA Airsoft Magazine, and also registered on our website at SA Airsoft Magazine, will get a draw or an entry into a draw. You can also get additional entries if you share the YouTube as well as the Airsoft Magazine on your social medias with hashtag AirsoftX giveaway, as well as hashtag Bear With Me and Sticks Around podcast. The second ticket, anyone that has bought a ticket from 1st of July all the way to end of August, the 31st of August, will get a full refund on their ticket. So guys, don't miss out. Go, subscribe, like, share, and let us know. We're looking forward to our first episode dropping on the 17th. So, activate the notification. See you guys soon. Okay, other than that, you can see the wiring, how it goes from the trigger housing through. So, interesting enough, it depends on what you have. ETUs, this is going to be replaced. This whole housing is going to be replaced, and it will have its own trigger unit in there that's got a little button that pushes to it and its own wiring. So you can already buy them wired, and all you have to do is slot them in. If you're doing a MOSFET, you might have to, aftermarket MOSFET, you might have to redo all the wiring. It's not too hard if you know how to solder, but it can become a bit of a tricky thing when you come to soldering it on the housing. So if you're not comfortable with it, I would say rather have a professional do it. Guy at Walker, there's a few guys that do it. I used to do it. I used to do it as a side hustle, fixing guns, but I just don't have the time anymore. One thing I must say that I've seen on other M4s go, and is the biggest problem, is this pin here. When that pin goes, you might as well just get a new shell. Alright, so that's that. In these holes, mine has now obviously come out. You can see there's one still there. Those are your bearings. So let me just find where all my little bearings are and put them back in there, and then I'll show you how that works. And I'm busy here, I'm putting these spacers back. So the tighter your gears are to each other, the better it grips, right? G&G gears are one of my favorites. They're very strong, very durable, and reliable. I'm not going to mention what is each gear at this point, because it's just going to take too long. But basically, here you can see there's a little blocker. Why is that delay again? Let me just jump over to this camera here. Okay, there's a little pin here. This blocks so that it's a what do you call it? Let's call it a spin back blocker. So your gears, once the spring is set all the way back and you're not shooting, it's not going to spin or re-spool. That's the wrong word for it and all that, but my brain's not functioning right now.
So in a sense, it keeps a constant rotation.
Well, it keeps it from spinning back. So it holds the gears from spinning back. This gear here is the one that moves the piston. As you can see, this side has no gears like it does here. This is the one that moves the piston. So when it gets to the last piston, or the last gear on the piston, it releases, and that's what shoots forward. Okay.
How would you tell if the piston and the piston head are in good condition?
Well, let's have a look at mine, right? First thing you want to do is, if you're upgrading your gun, is have a look at what your piston is. If this all is plastic, then that's the first thing you're going to need to change, because when you start getting more performance out of it, these gears are the things that go first. Okay, steel tooth pistons are the way. It doesn't have to be aluminium, a piston, the whole piston. Just this part is what you need to have metal. I actually prefer the plastic pistons with the steel tooth gears, because it's lighter, so in other words it would move faster. This part here is called your piston head. This is an aluminium piston head, and this is the O-ring that goes onto the piston head. This is what causes air pressure within your cylinder head, which is this over here. You want this to be tight. If I push this in, you can see I'm struggling to push this forward. It's not even going past that point. In other words, there's good air pressure in there. If I'm pushing this, then it's easy sliding through. It means you've got an air pressure problem. And that's why you're not getting good performance or distance with your gun or joules. Max Air has a fantastic piston head. It's got dual, O-rings. So now you're going to get quite a good seal on that. And I think the SCS or the CNC head piston heads from Walker also, even the double bells one, actually probably go for the double one, they're probably cheaper as well, has also double O-rings, which is going to give you a good seal. But yeah, I got this one for free, works perfectly, good CNC one. Moving on to your cylinder, so this is your air nozzle. Actually, I'm not going to slide this off now because there is O-rings on the inside of that, so I don't want to damage it. But this is your air nozzle. It's a CNC one, so in other words, it's going to be more durable and it's going to hold more air seal to it. And I've got a CNC cylinder head. Now this is a standard G&G cylinder head. It's got dual O-rings on that as well. This can just come off and you can slot it back in, but I'm not going to do that because I've got this thing perfectly set up now. And this is the cylinder which the piston goes in. And you can see there's a slit in there. Now some gears have longer ones. If you look at the max cylinders, if you look at the max air ones, you can actually choose different lengths as well as different sizes of these slits. This is what lets the air in. So when your piston moves back, it lets the air in there, which obviously contains within this part, and the piston pushes that out and pushes out the air towards your BBs. Okay. Why is it at the bottom?
It's pretty cool with the Max Air that you can actually set that up.
Well, you can't set it up. You can just buy different ones. You use different options.
All different options at least.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, it depends on your play style that you can. I think, if I'm not mistaken, no, it wasn't. But the longer it is, you're playing a different. See, the thing is, the more air you can get into the cylinder, right, the more air is going to be pushed out and with more performance, right? But you need to have air get in there. So if this is too small, then you might not get enough air in there. If it's too big, then then the air pressure area is also too small. So there's a very tight place of perfect ratio there. And for me, I'm too stupid to know what that is, so I just stay with the standard. Okay, this is the tappet plate. This is what moves the air nozzle forward and backwards. So when your gear, and I'll show you the gear that this one is, it's the same one as the piston gear. See there's a little pin on that. That pin moves this back when it spins. So it allows the piston to move back, and obviously then a new BB can get pushed into the hop-up and then shot forward. So that's pretty much the only use for this. But your gun won't work if this is broken. Okay. And this little spring here is the actual spring that goes onto this. So I might as well just put it on now. And that's what helps. So obviously when the gear pushes this back, the piston's going to stay at the back. So then how is this going to move forward? And that's with the spring. And that's what feeds the BB, the next BB in. Okay. Here's the latch, the reverse latch. This is called the reverse latch. This reverse latch is what goes onto the reverse latch gear. And like I said, it's the one that stops this from the spring pushing back, the whole setup back. Okay. But we will just put this one aside for now. This is why it's frustrating. If you don't have a quick release or quick change gearbox, and you gotta go through this whole bloody thing, as you see, I'm gonna fight later. Right, picking up all my spaces, which I am going to make sure I put on. I'm just gonna put it on my gears for now. Okay, so I put back all the bearings. This is where your gears are going to slide into. Now, to service them, you get different types of grease. So I bought this just from Cerberus. This is for your gears. And then you get a grease seal, which is for your piston. Now you can actually buy like a spray, or like an aerosol type of one, that you can just spray inside your cylinder. With this one, I rub it over the piston head. And then also the grease, I put it at the bottom. As you can see, there's quite a bit here. You've got to be careful with putting on too much grease because it can build up. So this is also why you have to service it, so you can clean it out. I just need a cloth, which obviously I didn't bring with me. So, anywho's. Well, seeing as I've got this disassemble, I might as well service my gun. So, my bearings, the first thing you want to do when you service your gun is see how well these bearings are still working. If your gun's still firing good and has a good fire rate, you don't necessarily need to change the bearings. But, you know, it doesn't hurt and they're not too expensive to do it. You get obviously a better rate of fire if your bearings is better. But it's not the end all and be all, right?
And what issues would you find with the bearings?
Well, obviously bearings are, you know, they can degrade. So if they're not functioning properly, that means your gun's not going to spool up properly. So that's pretty much it, really. I'm going to just put it at the bottom because this gear here is the one that goes flush against the housing over here. So I want to make sure that spins up nicely. There is too many spaces on this one. Why is there 2 spaces on this one? Okay, well, that's good. There was a gun I worked on and I put an ETU in, but this gear was catching something on that ETU. So what I did is as soon as I put in a spacer, it lifted just slightly over that ETU plate and it worked fine then. So these spacers can come in handy more than one way.
The DMR was giving issues at one point in time, and I added a few spaces in, and all of a sudden, all the issues that I was having just went away.
Disappeared. You'll see this cylinder the cylinder head has 2 holes on each side. In your gearbox, in the shell, there's pins there. That's what holds these cylinders in place. Now before I put the cylinder back in, I want to make sure I put, you can see there's like a little lip there and there's a little slit there. I want to put my tap plate in here because good luck trying to get that in once the cylinder is in. Okay, that's in. Okay, and you'll see it actually, it's like a puzzle. It fits in perfectly. Right? If it doesn't look right, if it doesn't look like it's sitting in properly, then you know there's something wrong with it.
Then you know something's up.
Yeah, something's not correctly put in place. So here I have for the cylinder, the piston head. So I'm just going to rub it over here to make sure I get proper air seal. Put some gear grease on there. I know everyone's going to have their own opinion on how much you should be putting on, how much you shouldn't be putting on. There's smarter people than me. I go with, if there's friction, it's not a good thing, right? Like a car motor. Okay, let's
Yeah,
just
one
test
would assume so.
Okay, you can see this. There's something up here. There we go. See, now there's pressure. There you go, in, and there's pressure. Good. That's what you want. That's how you test it. If there's no pressure, then it means there's something wrong with your O-ring, or the cylinder head, or the air nozzle. This part, this bloody hell, this trigger part is probably one of the most frustrating parts of putting your gun back together.
Is that tiny screw, not screw, spring? Oh, yes. When you finally putting the casing back on, that spring can, now, most of the times I've tried, that spring is the main reason I've got to take everything off and then put that back on, put the case back on just for it to happen again.
It's where swearing was developed from. So I'm just putting it on the gears, the gear grease, to make sure that it's not having too much friction. I could say something, but it's not PG appropriate.
Well,
I'm
you
not going to say it.
said that we're not PG rated.
No.
We're not child friendly. So I think we're entitled to one. I think. I think.
Gonna get it out of me. Okay,
Well, we'll see. Maybe the gun will get it out of you.
Jeez. Alright, so just as an example, if you have a look, here it's turning. You see it's turning the piston already. It's catching the tapper plate, which should essentially be moving it back. Okay, the tapper plate is all the way to the back now. Let's just reset this. That's how your tapper plate should look. It's all the way to the front. This is just feeded a BB into the BB into the hop up, and now the whole motor is moving, and it's going to be moving this tapper plate back, catching the piston. Dear goodness. And you can see it's now moving the piston back. When it gets to the last gear, it will, there we go, gets to this last gear. There's no more gears there to push. I don't know if you can see them. Try and get closer. There's no more gears for it to push the piston back, and you can see the cylinders, the piston heads all the way to the back, and that pushes then forward because there's no gears there to catch it. Okay, just understanding of the gears and the motors. Right, we're almost there. Almost there.
If you're doing a service, don't you wish you had some targets that you could practice shooting at just to make sure it's working 100%?
Yeah, I've got some annoying dogs. I'll just shoot at them. Just joking for any liberal animal lovers out there. Okay.
Yeah, no dogs were harmed. No dogs were harmed in the filming of this.
There's a spring on this reverse latch. Okay. The spring has an arm. For the sake of this video, I'm going to get as close as I can. Okay. There's a little arm here. That arm, what's going on with this thing? That arm goes over the latch. Okay. Spring sits at the bottom of it, of the reverse latch, and then this little arm here is going to go on the inside of this gear of the shell. So how I do it is I first put this in, push the reverse latch back, and then I put this gear in, and so that it pretty much just sits there. Okay, wunderbar. It is now, gears are in. But this isn't the hardest part. This isn't the most frustrating part either. That's still to come. We're going to put this spring on the tappet spring. The way I like doing this is I take a screwdriver, put it into that hole, and this is where the tension starts. And I will just slightly push it over. There we go. You see, now everything's starting to move already because there's no tension. When you start putting in the spring is when the real freaking tension starts. Hey, bloody hell.
Viewing morals of what?
This is why I stopped flipping working on guns. So let's get this trigger in. Everyone has their own process of what they put in first, what they put in last. I tend to go with the trigger last because they, for some reason, always jumps out. This little part here, this arm here, this is what the, what you call it, selector plate. Are we lagging again? You still there, Sticks?
Yeah, still here, still here.
Looking for a phone. There we go. This part here is what the selector plate, once it pushes forward, pushes this up, and that's what puts your gun onto safety. But we need to make sure it's on the inside of this gearbox before I put everything else on. Now comes the frustrating part.
And swear word time.
No, I'm not going to swear. I'm not going to do this without swearing. So, put your spring in. You get your spring guide. There's a lot of grease on my hands right now. Well, it's slippery. See if I can find something that might be a little bit easier. Actually, you know what? That's actually a good idea. Let's find something I can push in there. And it's a bit too narrow. Okay. Push this in. I like using the screwdriver because it gives me a little bit more grip on pushing this in. Now there is a snot load of tension right now. If I let go, you can see this is pushing up. I'm going to hold this down. And make sure my gears are all right to receive this part. The way I do it is I put my fingers, keeping the cylinder down, and I try to push this, put this on. Now you got to try to line up the gears. Okay. The reason why it's not closing properly right now is because of the gear pins. So you're going to have to try and wiggle them to get in there. Don't push down too hard on the shell, otherwise you won't be able to move them. And maybe sometimes you just need to wiggle, 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 wiggle. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Now before you start screwing in your screws, let's make sure that the gear pins are showing through. Okay, on both sides. Make sure all the little slits are, there's no gaps. Looks good. And the main test here, which I've often forgot to do, is the tapper plate. Is test it. If it's resetting, you know the tapper plate's working fine. And test your trigger. Okay, everything's working fine. Now I can screw. Put the screws back in. Now I'm going to show you in terms of what I mean about when it's tight enough. Okay, you see why I put them all in the correct order. I know exactly where each screw goes and where it goes. Having a cloth close by is handy because my hands are quite greasy right now. And it slides. Everything is sliding. Okay, so the same way I took it off is the same way I'm putting it back in, starting with the outer screws first.
Then working your way.
Check. So you see, as it catches, now it doesn't want to go further. You see, it doesn't want to go further, so I'm not forcing it. I'm not going to crank it even more. because that's how you strip screws. It is tight enough. So we'll go. Actually, you know what? Maybe there's a better way for me to show it. The thing with this ratchet is you can actually set the pressure. So if it goes too much, it's like almost like a ratchet. Those torque wrenches. If it goes too
Yes.
much to the point where you don't want it to go tighter, it will release. So let me use a screwdriver here just to give the example. Okay, you see, it's tight. I can tighten it more, but I don't want to. It has caught, and that's good enough. I've got a saying in my family as well: leave well enough alone.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Leave well enough alone. Okay, it caught. So the problem with people when they don't leave well enough alone is that's when stuff breaks. And then you look, oh, but now I've got to fix this. It was fine as it was. It was good enough. Just freaking leave it.
I mean, we've got one of our rifles silver. I mean, you know, silver.
Yeah.
We've had it since like 3, 4 years. We've only had to do rewiring. That's the only things we've had to do to fix it was. Everything else is perfectly fine. So we haven't even taken apart the gearbox properly. We're leaving it closed because we know as soon as we open it, that's where some of the problems start coming in.
And
We're gonna just leave it be.
you know what is actually a good example is your dad's gun.
Oh yes.
Stock standard, the thing is shooting 1.8 joules, 375 feet per second on 0.28 BBs. Leave it, it's perfect, just leave it alone. Don't go now fiddling with upgrades. And in actual fact, your dad did try once. I think he tried to change the nozzle or hop up or something, and it actually got worse. The performance got
Yeah.
worse.
His nozzle broke or something, and he bought one of the Maple Leaf ones. We put it in and it went from 1.8 to 1.4. So he said, no, this isn't good enough. Went back, bought a different piston, came back, put it on, it was back at 1.8. He's like, okay, cool, I'm happy.
Leave it, eh? If it's good enough, it's good enough. Right. Um, so now we've reassembled the gearbox. I now have to follow the steps back in putting it back together and do what I actually wanted to do. So for this, I have to now put in my selector. Okay, so my selector's in now. Right, while we're here, so you see this selector plate moves forward. That's on safety now. When it's just loose, it's on semi. Well, okay, pretty much there, it's semi. And when it's just loose, pushed way back, that's full auto. So you got to keep this in mind when you are working with your selector on the lower receiver. When I put this back in, I make sure my selector is on semi-auto. So when it pushes it in, I know, okay, it's on semi, and that just pretty much guides the selector plate easily. In my case now, it's a little bit different because I've got cogs I've got to work with. And I have to now figure out the best way for this to flip and work, which I can't remember. They do have little indicators on this. When I try to remember. So let's put this on full auto. There we go. I think that's going to be the best way to do it. Just spin this a bit. Full auto should be on that last gear. Nope. Come on now. Okay. So when it turns, when this turns, frack. So I'm going to hold it down. It should, yeah, there we go. And because it doesn't have a screw to screw this in or hold this tight or whatever the case may be, well, it does actually. I got this gun without screws. You can screw this in.
Interesting.
To what? I have no idea. That may be why I don't get screws with it. There is grooves on the inside there, but for what? I've got no idea. For nothing. Okay. Perfect. I'm gonna hold that just like that. I'm not putting this one in because I'm not going to use the other selector side. It's frustrating me. Don't want to use it. Not going to use it. G&G, you cannot force me. Actual fact, I was so annoyed with it. I was considering trading my gun just for the selector sake. Says a lot. Okay, so wires, motor wires, battery wire. Motor wires goes out this bottom part here. Battery wires comes out there. You with me? Fitz, I thought you had a lot of questions for me.
Again, as I said, you answering all of them that I had. You're doing a very good job of breaking it down. It's like all the questions are being answered before I can even ask them. So it's like I'm gonna beat you to this one now. When it comes to the whole wiring situation,
Yes.
how important would you say now it is to make sure that they are properly insulated, they're intact, and the connectors are corrosion free?
Well, without proper wiring, why are you fighting me? If your wiring isn't correct or isn't in good condition, that means your gun's not going to work. If your wiring is getting pinched somewhere, that means it's going to get damaged. And if your wires are damaged, your gun's not going son of a gun. Your gun's not going to work. So you need to make sure that, yes, insulation obviously is important, because short circuits happen. If a short circuit happens, it can damage your battery, it can damage your trigger housing, it can damage your ETU and your MOSFET and all the like. So proper housing is important and insulation is important so that it doesn't cause wires to short circuit. But I would say a more important thing, well, that's not more important, that is important. But what is also important is to make sure your wiring is not getting pinched between metals. I had a R5 where the wiring was pinched. I'm not going to say who did the wiring because that's not right. And I don't think the person did it on purpose. They were just trying to make the damn thing work properly. But the wiring was being pinched by the upper receiver. Now the R5 is like an 8K, which the upper receiver comes off, right? And every time you put in a battery, that upper receiver has to come off. And that caused, so I'm just focusing here for a second. There we go. See why just the normal M4s, not dual selectors, is so much easier to put in. That dust cover kept pinching that wiring, and then sooner and it broke. The wiring came off. Gun wouldn't work. Didn't cause a short, luckily, but obviously the gun doesn't work. And sometimes, if the wiring is also not done correctly, especially if the battery sits in the front of the M4, like the M4A1s, it can stop your magazine from getting seated properly into your gun, which obviously then it's not going to feed, and you got to try to fix that problem. So having the wires correctly wired into the gun is vitally important. I'd say, in my opinion, more important. More importante. Okay, I got it in.
Awesome.
It's much easier with standard M4s than this dual selector M4. So don't take this as shit that looked hard or frustrating. I don't want to do this. It's much easier than this guy. So
We got one in. We got one in.
got one in. Okay. Now I'm gonna go back into putting the pins in. Now remember what I said. Keep it all uniform, right? Uniformity is the strength of all units. You can see this pin here goes in from this side. So all the other pins are going to go in from this side also, including my trigger pin. Okay, where's my screw? I want to make sure that's nice and flush and in there. Okay, that doesn't want to play with me, then I will use something else. Okay, that's in. And we want to get this one out. Okay, we can do that later when I put in the upper receiver. Right, now we work our way back again, starting with, let's do the mag release. Finding me parts. Actually, just put the grease away. Put the grease away. Buddy, any questions, Dix? Are we doing good so far?
Would you say the more you take apart your rifle, the more confident you become in it?
You start to learn what's the easier ways of doing it, for sure. The more you take it apart, the more you learn about your gun, and you can do this faster. When I first disassembled my first AEG, it took me maybe 2 hours to do, because I had to like figure out what goes where, and then this was difficult to do. Didn't quite work with what I had planned to do. It's like, oh shit, I forgot to put that back in, or then I had to disassemble it again and put it back in. So the more you do it, the more you learn, and the faster you get with doing, disassembling and reassembling it. I mean, we've been recording plus including some of the technical issues we've had for about an hour 18 minutes. So I would say when I had to run to get the charger cable, it was another 10 minutes. So we've been doing this for about an hour, and I'm sure there's some guys that do this much faster. Now when it comes to these screws, I like doing it with my fingers, because as soon as that's tight enough, I stop. These little screws strip the fastest than all the other screws, and then you got to flip and frush. That's the worst. That's when you know, like, I don't know how I'm going to take this out. I'm going to have to mush something in there, and good luck trying to do that with these screws. This is where anger management comes from. They created anger management because of the screws like this. Back in the day, in Jan van Breeberg's day, there was just anger management. They slapped a few people around, and that was that. Then you came to society, which was upgraded to more civilized people, and you're like, we need to see counselors and emotional therapists and guide dogs and whatever else.
Jim, what did the dogs
I
do?
don't know. It was just something stupid I said. Guide dogs has got nothing to do with emotional stuff.
Yeah.
I think I was linking emotional support animals to guide dogs. Sorry, it's not guide dogs. I love actual guide dogs. Anyways, I am going to put my upper receiver on. I think it's going to just because I can. Right, something is blocking, so we just got to see what that is. What was blocking it was a move. I had to give it a bit of a rough and love. Okay.
A nice little tappy tap.
Little tappy tap. Right, so my upper receiver's back on, and now I'm going to screw on the selector itself. What I am going to do is I'm going to put the one with the screw that is not stripped in, but I'm going to use the selector where the boliki is not sitting between the springs. Oh, no, that's going to scratch it. So I'm going to use that one. Where's the little boliki? Right, again, righty tighty, lefty loosey, right? So if that is the case, let me put the bollikis over there. I am going to put this on the full auto side. And I'm going to tighten this in now. Remember when we did the selector plate, I made sure it was on the full auto as well, okay? Because I said that was the loosest part. So when I put the gear back in, I put it on full auto.
Mm.
That's
So
why,
it doesn't rotate.
yeah, that's why now I've got this on full auto as well. Okay, so when a standard M4, because it's the selector plate, when you put the gearbox back in, I say I always put it on semi. It's fine because when it moves and slides in, that selector plate's going to move and slide into the semi part. Mine, I have to pre-select it, which obviously the root of least resistance was the full auto. Hence why I make sure the selector is on full auto now. Savvy last, savvy. Okay, I'm going to tighten this up. And again, I'm going to avoid not stripping it. Okay, are we going to be able to work? Yep. Fantastic. And now, yes, it's open on this side, which is not actually what I want. But what I can do is to close that off from getting dust in there. I can just put the selector in. It's non-functional. Oh, it's not going to work. Right, well, because I don't have a cap like a normal M4 does. You'll see standard M4s actually has a little cap that goes on the inside of the lower receiver. It pushes in there. You can actually push it out, but you can also push it obviously back in, and that stops from the dust to get in there. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to use a little bit of duct tape and just put it over that. I don't want dual selector. I'm happy with this as it is. These selectors often come loose, so I'm just going to make sure that's a little bit tighter than normal. Cool. Let's check. Mag release, fine. All good. Let's make sure this opens. It opens. Good. Right, let's move on to the pistol grip sidey thingy. Right, so you want to make sure when you put this in, you see there's 3 holes. The one on the left is obviously for the, well, okay, I don't know if this is rotated correctly, but let me just do it like this rather. The far side with the hole that is closest to the red wire is where the red wire is going to go into. The middle hole is for the motor, and then the other hole's for the black wire. So you put it in that order. Push that in there. It's difficult for me to go left right because I don't know if the camera is reversed or not.
Yeah, because it might be rotated.
And everyone goes and puts it in the wrong and like, this looks stupid, eh? And that's just me. I'll probably say something like that. Okay. Extend this a bit. Push that down. And now we're going to tighten it. And again, like I said, as soon as it catches. No! Magnetic screws. Or screwdriver. Another great stupid idea. Great, because if a screw does go down, you're like, oh, thank goodness for a magnetic screw. Luckily, I can just...
It has its drawback.
Yeah. Luckily, I can just easily hold that in and put it in. Doesn't happen often, but it did this time. Alright, so I can feel it's getting tighter. And there we go. See, I didn't go further. It just stopped. I'm not going to go further. Okay, let's get this one. Getting these wires out of the way. Any more questions about upgrade sticks?
More so, it's when it comes back to placing the motor back in. It's how would you know it's facing the correct way? Are there any like tips that you know of that
I'm
could
just
assist with that?
I'm just going to show you the way I do it. Whether it's left, right, the motor can only go in one angle. Well, the flat sides can only go on the flat side, right? But if the negative sign is sitting on this side or the negative sitting on that side, it's irrelevant. It's how your wires are placed. Okay, and let's just make sure. There you go. It stopped. So I'm done. Because you got your wires. Good thing I've got it at this angle. Because you got your wires set up. That's how the gearbox was set up. So the red wire was in here. The black wire came through there. So I pretty much got it coming out that way. So the shortest path for this black wire is that the negative pole sits on this side, where the positive will sit on that side, right? The
Okay, yeah.
red, the positive wire is also longer, so you're able to, bend it a bit more, getting it to the right angles. And you'll notice that be that the case, you'll see the positive pole. If I'm putting it in this way, there's negative, which is on this side, positive, which is on this side. This red wire has to go over the motor to get to that pole, where the black wire can just pretty much go right in there. So
Okay,
that's also why the black one is shorter and the red one's longer.
okay, cool.
But look, for me, I've had a few questions like, um, you know, why would you want to go for an M130 spring? Why do you want to upgrade your springs? Simple answer is more velocity, feet per second. Essentially, your springs give you more velocity, right? So the higher your spring or the stronger the tension of the spring, the faster it's going to push that airflow out, and the more velocity you're going to get. Think about spitting. I put a BB in my mouth and go, pooh. The BB's just going to go like this, but it'll go, poof. It's going to go further, right? Like boktrolspoeg. Um, you know,
One thing I will say on with upgrading the springs and that, I mean, you know MP very well. It went from running on 7.4s, upgraded the motor and the spring, to now it has to run on 11.1s.
yeah. I mean,
So but that's another thing to keep in mind
that's
of
true.
obviously you upgrading these things is going to require a lot more from the gun and the gears.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to give it more power.
Which also means no, you're going to need a stronger motor. Which means a stronger motor means you're going to need more power. 100% correct with that. Um, I mean, this is a 25k motor. You get a 45k motor, so you're going to get a hell of a lot of rate of fire. But you also get different motors. You get a high torque motor, and I think the other ones is a high RPM motor. So you'll see guys playing like Speedsoft will go with a higher RPM motor instead of a higher torque because they're keeping their springs at a 100 or 110. Remember, Speedsoft is engagements from 5 to 10 meters. So they don't need massive joules like what we do in bush games. So
Yeah.
they'll have maybe one maximum 1.2 joules in a Speedsoft with velocities much higher. So, but what they actually want is faster rate of fire so they can get more BBs down range. Okay, so they'll go with a higher, like a higher RPM motor.
So the
Okay, so again, negative, positive, negative, positive, and there you go. It's in there. You can hear it works because nothing's blocking it. I'm gonna put my little black cable through and put it over its pole. Seed it in. Now for the red one, trying to get
and
this
again be careful not to break those pins on the motor.
correct. And even what I've had before is the little what do you call it, spades from
Yes.
the wires itself. When that thing breaks off, oh my gosh, then you got to cut. And if you make your wires too short, then yeah, that's another problem. Okay, so now that wires are in, I can feel that it's sitting tight. You're going to get the plate and you'll see the plate has like these little arms. That's to push the wires out of the way so it doesn't get pinched, because you don't want the wires going in between there. So as you can see, I'm just trying to angle them in over this plastic part. See, it's that plastic part there that this is going to go over. So this also helps that the motor doesn't just spin around inside the, well, it won't spin inside, but it won't.
It doesn't lift out of place per se.
Correct. So come on, you ugly thing. There we go. Sometimes you just need to be forceful, you know. It's like women. Just joking, just joking. If my wife is listening to this, which I highly doubt, I should be fine.
Should be okay.
Should be okay. Don't know. Sticks, if you don't hear from me,
I know what happened.
as long as you know you got the code.
Gen 4.
Right. I think it will be easy if I actually use the screwdriver. There's a lot of pressure on here, so I'm pushing hard down to get it over the threads. And still, I'm still in the same point, like when it catches and it stops, I'm done, because I don't want this to strip. If this strips, good luck. Good luck getting this out, because you cannot do anything if this here, if these strip. You can't get this off, you can't get the motor out, you can't do anything. So this is vitally important you don't strip. If once it stops, it's not stopped yet. Stopped. It's done.
Yeah, because again, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to use the center screw that's in there to tighten and loosen the motor.
Yep.
So that's more your, those are just to hold it in place, so you don't want to over tighten them.
Correct. Well, you don't want to over tighten. It needs to be tight enough, because there's also pressure here. The spring is pushing this motor back. So if that's too loose, you're going to have to, you know, then you're going to constantly try to adjust that, and you're just not going to get the consistency. So it has to be tight, fastened in properly, but don't over tighten it. As soon as it's in, it's fine. It's done. Okay. So that's that. Now, for me, it's an easier part. For standard M4s, this is a more frustrating part, because that buffer tube is quite long, and you need a long screwdriver to get that in. For me, I'm smiling on this one, because it's a lot less work for me to do this.
How's it, guys? Sticks from Just Bear With Me and Sticks Around podcast. Just wanted to take this time to quickly thank our sponsors. So thank you SA Airsoft Magazine for sponsoring us, and also giving away the July and August issue for those who have registered on the website. So guys, don't miss out. Go through to the website, sign up, and you'll get 2 free magazines to read.
Just make sure that's... In actual fact, this part here broke, and this gun is so well designed that I was able to use epoxy to put this back together, and it's solid. It's, you know, I love this gun. I've had many guns, but this gun,
Haven't we all?
yeah, haven't we all? But this gun, it's going to take a very special gun for me to move away from this gun. Double barrels, it's tempting. Not gonna lie.
Oh, no. What's it? The TT1.
TTI, yeah, the Terran Tactical International.
Yeah.
Definitely tempting. But I mean, I've got this gun to a T now. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm pushing it a little bit down. I'm using the barrel to push down, so that I can just keep it into place, and then I'm screwing it in, because this tube is loose at the moment, and it has to be in a specific spot. so that it doesn't pinch the wires. It's important that, again, like I said, can't pinch the wires, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now that it's tightening up, I can just, there we go. Perfect. Right, let's give it a test.
I hope you emptied it the last time we played.
Well,
And
let's see.
it's not one in the
My
chamber.
glass will break. Well, obviously, I didn't empty the whole gun. Well, I mean, there could be one in the. So we got semi. Oh, sorry, safety. And she's working beautifully. And I'm happy now because I don't have to fight with. See, the problem I had with the selector is because it was ambidextrous. Every time I try to play on semi, it either it loosens up from this side, and then I can't, and I'm on full auto or whatever the case be. But now it's like, oh, got it.
At least.
At least.
No, I can imagine, like with MP, the selector switch, exactly as you said earlier. The sides sometimes wouldn't match up properly. You accidentally tap it on the one side, and if it's slightly out, then the gun doesn't work, or it shoots too many. It can be a bit much.
Can be frustrating. Okay.
Especially if you're in close quarter combat, you also don't want to be that guy that shoots accidentally full auto someone. Because yes, it's an accident, but you still feel bad about it.
Yeah. I must say though, we were talking about why your back was sore, was because of that spring, not because of my rate of fire. But I mean, so
That was the first time I dropped. I couldn't stand after being shot. First time in a while.
I do apologize. It's because of this.
It was
That's the
brilliant.
thing. I had to be on full auto because the selector was acting up. So instead of having one shot on your back, you had three. So
I think it was
people.
4 because I was checking. I was like, I saw there were 2 right next to each other. Then it was one further up, and then there was one at the very top. So I'm sure it was 4 because no one else got behind me. It was only you.
Let's agree to disagree. Let's leave it at that.
We'll check the footage.
But yeah, I mean, that's why it's important to make sure your guns are working the way it's supposed to work, because we're not here to, essentially hurt people. We want to play an enjoyable game, and if your gun is working properly, then you're going to be safety to others. So that's it.
And it's less things to worry about on the field.
Yeah. So that's how you disassemble a gun. We went through quite a few parts. If anyone's any questions, you're welcome to send me a message, and we'll gladly answer them. But I hope this was informative and helpful, and I hope everyone can now do it themselves. You don't necessarily have to take it to anyone specifically to do it. When it comes to the upgrades, I would recommend taking it to someone, especially when it comes to the wiring. They know what they're doing, and I've learned lots of lessons by trying to do it myself, which I don't regret because now I'm able to fix guns myself. But these guys, they also take their time to make sure they do a good job, and that's also for them as a side hustle so that they can play airsoft. So if you can support someone, you don't have necessarily the time to do it, and let someone do it for you. But if you are looking to do this as for yourself or a side hustle, this is how you learn. Disassemble, reassemble, work on various guns. I've worked on GBB pistols, I've worked on AEGs, I've worked on the AKs, M4s, a few guns, and everyone is unique and different in their own way. So what might work for this gun might not work for a different gun. You're going to learn different techniques on each one. And maybe that's why guys that do this as a side hustle, sometimes worth taking it to them because they know what's going to work and not going to work.
100%.
Awesome. Thank you guys
But I
for
just wanted
joining.
to
Hey?
thank you for thank you for taking the time to do this and to actually show our subscribers and that how the basic things that you took the time out to do it. You did it with your own personal rifle. So thank you for taking the time out to do it.
Luckily, we didn't get much much difficulties this time with it. It's easy maybe this time. Next time it might not be so easy. So thank goodness it was easy this time. But it's a pleasure. I mean, we do this to help the community, and I've had many questions before, like you've been asking, Sticks, like when do you service? Why do you service this? What's the best way to upgrade? And I sat on many video calls trying to help someone install certain parts, and they're just like, I'm just gonna send it to you. I'm like, no, don't send it to me. I don't do this as a job. Send it to the guys who do it as a job. But as for my team, I always help out where I can. So if I'm able to do it for them, I'll gladly do it. But if you do it yourself, you learn something new.
That is true.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. Sticks and I are obviously, there's family life and work life and personal lives. So where we were posting every week, we might be getting to a point where we're doing it every second week. But we're definitely getting it, or going to continue to send or create these podcasts and episodes. Maybe a little bit less live ones. We might do live maybe once a month. And we're still going to send out the magazines. We're going to do the magazines where we were planning to do it once a month. We're going to do it once every 2 months. Until this thing grows and we're getting more followers and more supporters, it is what it is. We're going to do this as we can do it. But we still want to get regular content out. So I appreciate everyone that is watching, everyone that is supporting, and everyone that is sharing these podcasts to get more followers for us. We truly do appreciate it. And we want to just grow the community. And by growing this podcast and magazines, we are growing the community as well. So we appreciate you all. Thank you for watching.
Cheers.